ReconAthlete.com podcast is brought to you by Lawnman ATX and Kreitz Market.
3 days ago, they added one more game to Chase Young,
did see
so
that.
suspended against Rutgers as
So
well.
he'll be back on the 23rd.
But unfortunately, he had to miss Maryland and Rutgers. What a bummer.
Womp. So he'll be back against Penn State.
Correct.
How ironic.
So Ohio State's still my favorite to win the national championship.
Well,
If
Chase Young.
if it's one thing the NCAA hates more than players taking money, it's Penn State.
ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 26. Chris Sanchez, Zach Lucero in the house, Paul Rodriguez, and we had the bi-district championships go down last night. There was one Thursday night, of course. Cedar Park with the big 49-10 win over McCallum, and the rest were last night. And we lost a lot of great teams last night, fellas, in the Austin area. 13-6A teams that went down last night. Man, shout them out, man. Cedar Ridge, 42-28 on the losing side to Cypress Woods. Stony Point falling to Cypress Ranch, 38-24. And Vista Ridge, 49-43 on the short end of the stick against Tomball Memorial. Great teams. These were some good games. Stony Point just didn't seem like they could get everything done defensively, kind of like they struggled all season. Vista Ridge had the ball on the 1 yard line last night. I don't know if y'all heard on FanStan ATX, but they had the ball on the 1 yard line, and it was a fumble that lost Vista Ridge. Great season from 1-9. Was it 1-9 or 2-8 last year? It was.
I think it was 1-9.
1-9.
Yeah.
To getting into the playoffs. 8-3 overall, 6-2 in 13-6A. But we almost lost all four last night. Zach and Vandergrift Vipers with a 14-13 comeback win against a second-year program in Cypress Bridgeland?
Right, correct.
All right, man. Talk about that game last night.
No, I mean, I think Vandergrift just looked real flat to start out the game. They couldn't get anything going offensively, and when I say that, I mean like 3 and outs. So their offense was not on the field for very long, and Bridgeland was just sustaining drives. Man, you look at their schedule and their scores of the games that they've played so far this season, and they're putting up a lot of numbers, all behind a sophomore quarterback who's really been lighting it up through the air. So I think that's something that Vandergrift game planned for, to be able to stop that air attack. They have a 3-star, 4-star receiver that Vandergrift had keyed on really heavily, and that wasn't even close to what Bridgeland's game plan was. They came in and ran the quarterback power, quarterback draws, and I think it's something that caught Vandy off guard. So Bridgeland was able to just eat a ton of clock. I think in the first half, Vandergrift only had like 3 offensive possessions. We looking at the first half stats, it was like 49 total plays for Bridgeland and like 15 for Vandergrift.
Oh wow!
Vandy had 2 really big pass plays in the last 10 seconds, and besides those 2 plays, I think it was like 8 or 12 total yards in the first half for Vandergrift. So it really, on both sides of the ball, it wasn't looking good, and until Bridgeland's second touchdown that was scored with about 30 seconds left in the half. Coach Sanders just dials it up, and they blocked the extra point. A couple guys tried to scoop it and score it, but they ended up just falling on it. So that puts the Bridgeland lead to 13-0, and that's just the real momentum swing. I think as soon as that happened, Coach Sanders is able to say, like, all right, that's all I needed. Mm-hmm. And come out the second half, and they were able to get a couple stops on the board. Luke Jasinski had a really, really good punt that pinned him inside the 5. And just things like that just really motivate this team and really get them rolling. They really feed off one side of the ball. It really feeds off the other, and that includes special teams. So a few stops later, 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Big pass to Snoop's favorite player, Blake Youngblood, for a touchdown that really got things going offensively. And then another stop, aided by some untimely false starts for Bridgeland. And then cap it off with a Mongozi touchdown. So, and I think that was really good for him to come back because he had a couple drops in this game. So, I mean, big-time playmakers make big-time plays in big-time moments. So, and I think that's exactly what happened, and Vandergrift's going to take a lot of momentum from this game into Klein Collins next week.
Yeah, no, that's going to be back at Monroe Stadium next Friday. And before we move on here, you caught up with Coach Sanders right after the game, so let's hear what Coach Sanders had to say.
All right, Coach, you told me at halftime that there's some games plan stuff you guys had to fix there in the locker room. What'd you tell your guys to turn this thing around?
Well, I mean, we just go in there and we just believe we can win, and we've done it enough. We've won so much now that the kids actually believe us, when we're saying that. I think at the beginning of our program, I'm not sure they did. But, now when I say, hey, guys, we're going to go score, and we're going to get in their stop, and we're going to go score. And they just start to believe. And so, I was just thrilled with their attitude in the locker room. The locker room attitude was amazing. And I knew when we came out of half that we had a chance just because they were the way they were behaving. And us to be able to go and block the extra point right before half when a lot of teams would be pouting, we're favored by I don't know how many points, and we're 10-0, and oh my gosh, this could be a disaster. But instead, we go and block the extra point, and end up being the difference in the game. And a guy like Jackson McCauley, a senior, all-state linebacker, he's not pouting. He goes and gives his very best. And I think that kind of sums up our program is we're going to go as hard as we can until the last second ticks off, and you saw that tonight.
Coach, this is my third year doing this, and you've talked a lot about the Viper Way. How is this a perfect example of the Viper Way?
It is. I mean, it's everything. I wish we didn't today. I wish we didn't have to struggle so long. But I mean, they're trying hard too. They have game plans too. They coach their butt off. They're a great program. They're a reason they're 8-2. They beat Cy Ranch this year. So they're a great program, and so it's just great to see us live out what we kind of preach, and we saw that tonight in the fourth quarter.
And Coach, you talked a little bit about Jackson McCauley. I mean, to be able to turn this game around, the type of leadership that your team has, what can you say about those guys, the senior class, just the leaders that you have on this team?
I don't know. I owe so much to them. I mean, because, you could be a great coach, but if, your guys don't buy into it and your guys don't go with you and kind of, almost believe everything you say, it's not like blind belief, but I think it's just because we have such a great relationship that no matter what, when I tell them we can do it, they believe in it. And it goes with the other coaches, too. I think we just got such a high level of trust. And when you have that, you have good players, and you have a high level of trust, this is what happens tonight.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
All right, so Vandegrift with a 14-13 comeback win over Cypress Bridgeland. They're going to play Klein Collins next Friday at Monroe Stadium, 7 o'clock. And, you hear Coach Sanders talk about it there, the halftime adjustments and how the players go in at halftime down 13-0, but – he's got them believing. You talked and you mentioned it in the interview there, Zach, the Viper Way, and these kids have bought into that and to Coach Sanders' way of playing football so much that even down 13-0 at halftime, they really as a team believe that they can win this football game, and they showed it in the second half because they came out, scored twice, defense shut them out, and they're moving on to the area round.
And the big time players on this team, the real leaders on this team are they've been a part of this program for so long, so they have had time to really sit in this program and really know what this program is about, to know what these coaches are about, to be able to get to a point where they are fully bought in. They really believe in what this coaching staff is selling to them. And they say that a lot of people were comparing this game to the Cedar Ridge game last year, the one that went into overtime against Jalen Ellis in Cedar Ridge, and they say that these Vandegrift players have just been there before. They've faced situations like this before, but I think what's lost in that is these coaches have been in the same situations too. That they're able to know what they said last time, to be able to know what they didn't say last time that they wish they would have said, to be able to motivate these kids, to be able to lead them to a comeback similar to what they did last year. So I think that's huge. Just the amount of experience, the amount of moments that this Vandegrift team has been in, whether it's Cedar Ridge last year, whether it's Hendrickson this year, whether it's Stony Point this year, whether it's Klein Collins last year, even if it's losing to a Longview team last year that ended up going to be eventual state champions. I think just those experiences are just priceless for this team and priceless for this program to turn into coaching points and motivational moments. And I think that those are all something that Vandegrift calls upon when they need it, and when they needed it, it gets them the win.
We talked about earlier Wednesday how this game could be played real tight to the vest. And it kind of just played out that way. But I was telling you in our messenger, I was like, I believe in Coach Sanders. And I think you made a really good point about how not only the players were there, but the coaches were there previously. And for them to buy in that way, not only the players, but the coaches simultaneously, I believe in Coach Sanders and his halftime adjustments. And they obviously, the equity paid out today or last night for the Vipers. So I look for them to continue to do well. And, they got enough tough road next week against Klein Collins. So we'll see how it plays out. But shout out to Coach Sanders and the Viper way, because I'm believing in it just based off of what you've been telling us all year, Zach.
Yeah, and I think last night, Bridgeland sounds like from what you're describing, Zach. They just came out and they actually tried to play Vandegrift's game.
Yeah,
they actually came out and were like, "We're going to control the football. We're going to control the clock. We're going to be the ones that are controlling the flow of this game." And they did that in the first half and probably a little bit in the second half too. But Vandegrift was able to come out there in the second half, make the adjustments that they need to make, and win 14-13, and that blocked extra point. Those are huge. We always talk about the kicking game. We love the kicking game. Shout out all the kickers. Not only because their last names are Diaz and Gonzalez and stuff like that. Most of them
are Jasinski
or Kipperman. But I saw that happen when I went to see the Vandegrift versus Round Rock game. Round Rock went down. They scored on their first offensive possession, but then there was the blocked extra point, and I think that was a momentum.
It's just stealing momentum.
Yeah, and that's all that is. And with Bridgeland, they have all the momentum right before the half, and then all of a sudden there's an extra point block, and it doesn't seem like it's a whole lot, but in this game it was the difference.
And I mean, not only is it gaining momentum for Vandegrift, but if you're Bridgeland, you're like, damn, they just blocked the extra point. Like we just scored. Like you're at this high from scoring, and then you get your extra point blocked. So that it's a real upper for Vandegrift and a real downer for Bridgeland. And I think we were in the broadcast talking at halftime because there were opportunities for them to scoop that and score it.
Yeah.
And we were in the halftime broadcast just because the lack of offense that Vandegrift had. We were saying that it was a real bummer that they weren't able to scoop and score that. But, I mean, that's not what Coach Sanders was saying in the locker room. He was saying that all we need now is 2 scores and we'll win this thing. And that's exactly all they needed and exactly what they did.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we made this talk on Wednesday, and you might as well just start calling Coach Sanders Iceman, because he does. Yeah. He just waits. He waits for you to make a mistake. And that's what you were talking about he was talking about in that interview where he saw the body language of his opponent last night. And he knew that they were going to be all right. And he just waits until you make that big, crucial mistake. And he's got you. And then he takes advantage and he put his team in a position to get that W.
Yeah. And just going over some stats real quick. Shout out to the Statesman, statesman.com. Houston, Cypress, Bridgeland here. 361 total yards. Vandegrift, 222.
Wow.
Bridgeland, 25 first downs. Vandegrift, 10.
I mean, even after the game, we were looking at the stats, and looking at the stats, you're like, how did this team win?
Yeah, how did Vandy win?
Is this a typo? Like Bridgeland had the better players. Bridgeland had the better statistical performers, but Vandegrift had more heart. Vandegrift had more fight, and Vandegrift was just a little bit more timely.
Chemistry, I think, is their biggest asset.
I don't see any fumbles on here. Were there any turnovers in the game? No turnovers. Not even on downs.
There was a couple turnovers on downs for Bridgeland.
Okay.
Bridgeland really, Bridgeland was in 4th and short the whole game. They really had no reason to try to punt. I think they punted like twice, but they had no reason to. They were in Vandegrift territory almost the whole game and in 4th and 1 or 2. So I mean, they just went for it every time. Their quarterback was getting like 5 a pop on that QB power. So they were just converting 4th downs like they were nothing.
All right. So once again, Vandegrift with the win last night. Come back 14-13. Over Bridgeland. They're going to play Klein Collins next Friday night at Austin's Monroe Stadium, and that was done by coin flip, right, guys?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Is that how we got the Vandegrift got the home?
Yeah, true. Friday Night Lights fashion.
All right, so that's 6A Division II. Let's move on. Let's stay in 6A Division II. Westlake with a 30-7 win over Cibolo Steel last night. We talked about how this was a state championship level game. Westlake showing state championship level medal, and they look, like they got a lot of momentum going into the rest of this playoff season. They're going to take on San Antonio Brenham next Friday, 7:00 kickoff at the Bobcat Stadium down in San Marcos. And we didn't really get to see this game. This game was on KBVO.
Yeah.
We'll probably be able to get a replay of that.
Probably today.
Yeah, hopefully today.
Yeah.
So we'll catch a little bit of quote unquote film. and see how Westlake played this game. But your initial thoughts there, Paul, on Westlake's win over Steel?
Well, just kind of monitoring the score early, it was really tight, and I think Steel came out with a field goal first, and then Westlake kind of climbed back into it. But in the second half, I'm pretty sure the defense for Westlake made their adjustments, and they're so disciplined. They probably just waited out Steele, and they just kind of held them at bay. And to walk off with that victory in the bi-district round for an opponent of that caliber, I think is just tremendous. And I think it'll pay dividends once they get to like the regional rounds, and hopefully they can make a push in the state semis. I think will be very beneficial for this early victory early on.
Yeah, so Westlake going to be moving on next week, and they're going to be taking on, like I said, San Antonio Brennan, 7 o'clock Friday at San Marcos's Bobcat Stadium. You can go to reconathlete.com, by the way, if you want to see the area round matchups and the times and the places. I think Lake Travis is the only one we haven't got one yet for. And then Manor, New Caney. I think we might be able to find the Manor game on Twitter somewhere. If you're on Twitter, Paul, look up Charlie Keller.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get that taken care of right now.
What's up?
Well, my phone's recording us right now. I was going to do it offline and ask Zach to look it up, but you kept looking at me funny, so I just wanted to break it up and now tell you.
I mean, you got a computer in front of you, bro.
Well, I don't have. I have to go look up. I mean, I'm looking at 4 different things right now to find.
My bad. And Zach's over here
trying to use all of our resources.
Zach's over here, tweeting with his girlfriend.
I'm trying not to call anybody out.
I don't know what he's doing over here, but anyways,
I'll go ahead and get on that.
Westlake taking on San Antonio Brennan next Friday night, 7 o'clock. Now that's not going to be an easy game either. Brennan's 9-2, coming out of a tough district out in the San Antonio area. 6A Division I, Lake Travis with the win over Smithson Valley. That game 21-3. Smithson Valley. Not the same Smithson Valley team as we've seen before. Rangers always been a kind of a state powerhouse in the past. They were 6-4 and 4-2 out of that district coming into this game against Lake Travis. Only able to muster 3 points against the Cavaliers, but we know how good that Lake Travis defense is, and I'm kind of not concerned, but I guess surprised that Lake Travis was only able to put up 3 touchdowns in this game. I know. No Hudson Card, you got some injuries going on for the Cavaliers. But 21 points, it's enough to win.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to be greedy here. I'm not trying to say that's not enough, but it's plenty enough when the other team is only scoring 3. But, Lake Travis just, it seemed like they might have been able to score more. I don't know. I didn't go to the game, though. You look at the stats. If you look at the stats of the Vandergrift game, you say, how do they even win this game? But Lake Travis, still moving on. Any thoughts about that, Zach?
I think Lake Travis is in a similar situation to Vandergrift in the fact that they're really having to re-identify themselves on offense.
Yeah.
So I think they're still working through a lot of things. They're trying to figure out what Nate Yarnell what his thing is gonna be, what his niche is gonna be, and how he's gonna lead this team, and how to kind of cater their offense around this brand new quarterback that was kind of thrust into things. So, I mean, you spend a whole summer, you spend a whole offseason game planning something and installing a scheme to fit your personnel, and for your personnel to just get flipped upside down with the loss of Bowen Lewis, with the loss of James Collier, with the loss of Hudson Card. I think it's going to take a little bit more than a couple weeks to be able to get this offense for both teams really, really clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and Lake Travis able to put up 343 yards on the offensive side of the ball. Smithson Valley only 129 yards total offense. Shout out to that Lake Travis defense. All right, go back to reconathlete.com here. We're going to 5A Division I. Hutto taking on Shadow Creek out of Alvin. That'll be next Friday night at Waller Stadium, 7:30 p.m. And I was... they're getting there because of the 35-27 win over Seguin last night at Hippo Stadium, and I called Hutto a state championship type of team back in like week 2.
Yeah, when they were fully healthy. Though.
When they were fully healthy, Brock Bueno they lost. They got Makai Kimball back, so he was doing his thing last night at Hippo Stadium, and we kind of know Shadow Creek is a newer.
They're in the state championship game last year.
Yeah, newer program. I was going to say they're a new program, but they were in the state championship last year.
And so they got a lot of those kids kids coming back.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tough game for Hutto in the area round, but I think the Hutto Hippos, they've got enough experience on their side of the ball to take on a team like Shadow Creek. Because Shadow Creek is 11-0 on the season. Cedar Park taking on Friendswood next Saturday at NRG Stadium. That's going to be 6 o'clock kickoff. Anybody going to try to go to that?
No.
I'll say, NRG Stadium, shout out. And Cedar Park's getting there with the big win over McCallum on Thursday night. 49-10 was the final there. Manor taking on, I believe it is Fort Bend Hightower, maybe? We'll have to look at that. Manor's going to be playing next week. They had the big win, 28-27 over Dripping Springs last night. That's 2 years in a row that the Manor Mustangs have knocked out Dripping Springs.
Yeah, we're waiting on that game that's going to be played today. New Caney Porter versus Fort Bend Hightower. So whoever gets the win, we'll figure out. That's why we really don't know the location of the game yet.
Yeah, no, Maynard with the 28-27 win. Shout out the Mustangs. Shout out Coach Jimmy Mitchell and all the coaches, the great coaching staff, and the parents and the staff over at Manor High School. Georgetown, 6-3 win over LBJ last night at Nelson Field. They're going to be taking on Richmond Foster. That's going to be 2:30 next Saturday at Bryan's Green Stadium. Georgetown 6, LBJ 3. I went to that game last night. Defensive struggle. Both sides of the ball, or both sides of the field, those offensives couldn't really get anything going. Both of these defenses were amazing last night. And I just think on the LBJ side, a little bit more of a passing game, and they can win this. And I was kind of surprised that Georgetown. I mean, they did a lot of RPO stuff. And that's what we're used to seeing from Georgetown Eagles. But most of the time, it was a run, run pass option.
Right.
It wasn't really an option. They were just running the ball, and that's probably what LBJ was giving them. LBJ plays a lot of. LBJ is full of athletes, so they're playing a lot of man-to-man out on the outside. And I thought, me personally, just watching the game, I thought Georgetown had plenty of time or plenty of opportunities, to challenge that LBJ secondary. Now, the LBJ secondary led by Andrew Makuba, and you got Danny Davis back there. You got some great athletes back there for LBJ, and
they have some athletes that aren't even on the field that
right.
are better than they are.
Right, and you don't want to turn the ball over if you're Georgetown, but I thought that there were some opportunities for Georgetown to take some shots downfield. And they did, and when they did, there was a couple of times where they made some big plays, but then they went back to the ground game. So I don't know if they were just trying to, shorten the game.
Do you think Georgetown was probably trying to keep LBJ off of the field offensively, and that's probably why they were just being run heavy?
I mean, not really, man, because, LBJ couldn't really get anything done on the offensive side of the ball last night. They were trying to run a little bit, tried to pass, and they just really didn't have any kind of positive yards for LBJ last night. And it was, if you're a fan of scoring, it was tough to watch. I'm a fan of defense, so I had a good time.
I got you. I'm with you on that. I can follow that. For a lot of people, though,
it was kind of
their cup of tea.
Yeah, it was kind of boring, and I was a little disappointed that LBJ just kept trying to run the same play over and over again. There was really no adjustments made at halftime, or was really no adjustments made in game by the coaching staff. This is a game that LBJ could have won easily. This game could have gone either way. But shout out to the Eagles. They take the win. They're going to take on Richmond Foster next Saturday at Bryan's Green Stadium. All right, 5A Division II. Brenham is going to be taking on Alice next week. And Pflugerville Weiss with the big win over Lockhart last night. They're going to take on Mission Pioneer. 7:30 Friday at, what does that say there, Paul?
It says Cabanas.
Cabanas Stadium.
That's in Corpus. That's in Corpus Christi. Everybody.
What?
Yeah.
Is it new?
I would assume so, because I have not heard that name of that stadium in my time in college or high school football. Yeah. But we did get a chance to catch up with John King Kalunga last night, and he kind of gave us his thoughts about the game against Lockhart and Weiss.
Man, I got there kind of late, brother. I'm not going to lie. I got there right before half. There was probably about 3 minutes left, and there was actually some controversy last night, right there before halftime as well.
Controversy, right, you say?
Yeah, there was some controversy. I didn't really state it last night on Twitter because I don't want to be sounding like a little whiny baby and trying to defend Lockhart. But there was a fumble that happened with 2 minutes left in the half that would have gave Lockhart the ball, and we still would have been up 7-0, and we might have been able to probably punch it in before halftime. It was about midfield. Young man fumbled the ball. They let them keep the ball, saying that he was down. He was clearly still on both feet. No knees down, no arms down, no elbows down. Weiss got to keep the ball. They drove down. There was about a 25-yard pass whenever they finally scored before halftime. And that was also a controversial call because I have it on video as well that the ball hit the ground. He cradled it. They showed it on the big screen at the football field as well. And he clearly dropped the ball.
So some controversial events last night that leading to some not so favorable calls for the Lockhart Lions. John, how did this game end?
It ended 24-14. Weiss, they pulled off two big plays, man, with those pick sixes. I give them that. Their offense wasn't really doing much, man. Our Lockhart defense showed up last night. The offense, they were doing enough, man, but I remember talking to you, Paul, and you letting me know they have some D1 commits over there on the Pflugerville side of the field. And I'm not going to lie, they showed out. Those D1 boys, they're cold over there. And that 91-yard interception, man, that I posted on Twitter last night, that was a beaut. I'm not even going to lie. He jumped that route nice and clean, and it was like clear green grass all the way to the end zone. But it was a little frustrating for the Lions, man. They fought hard. They got within 3. They were down 17-7 going into the fourth quarter with 7 minutes left, but Lockhart punched it in to make it a 14-17 game. I thought we really had a chance, man, but those pick sixes didn't help us out. The controversy before half didn't help us out because we would have held the lead. And I don't know, man. I'm proud of the Lockhart Lions and Coach Mavis, man. They did a wonderful job this year, man. They brought it, man. I can't wait until next year. Congrats to the Lockhart Lions and making it this far and getting into the playoffs. And I'm really ready for next year for sure.
Great showing by the Lockhart Lions last night. Coming up short a little bit, 14-24, a loss to Weiss. Weiss will advance. John, thank you very much for all that you've done for the Lockhart Lions this season, and we'll talk to you again soon, sir.
All right, brother. I appreciate it, Paul, man. Go Lockhart Lions and Recon Athlete all day. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you again, John. Shout out to Keith Schmidt and our great sponsor out of Lockhart and Kreitz Market. They've been a great partner with us this year. Let's go ahead and keep it moving. We're going to be taking on – Flatonia is taking on La Pryor next week, Friday at Central Catholic in San Antonio. I got a chance to talk to Chris Becker last night. Shout out to Lawman ATX. Everybody, you need to know the name DeCorey Willis. He's a legacy. His father played at Oklahoma State. Last night, that young man had 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. He contributed to 5 of their 7 touchdowns last night. Flatonia, big victory over Iola Bulldogs, 48-0, which puts them into the area round. So I look forward next week to checking out Flatonia, number 6, moving up in the rankings, number 6 in 2A Division II football in high school, Texas. And I'm just really excited for next week's matchup against La Pryor. One thing I was noticing is the number 1 team in 2A Division II is Falls City. Well, Falls City just happens to be in Region 4 in 2A Division II. And so if Flatonia wants to move forward in a couple of weeks, they might just meet in the regional round. Falls City, the number 1 team in 2A Division II in high school or Texas football.
All right. So shout out to the Bulldogs for the win. And shout out, like you said, Lawman ATX for the sponsorship of Recon Athlete. All right, ReconAthlete.com podcast, episode number 26. Chris Sanchez, Zach Lucero, Paul Rodriguez. We got the area round coming up next week, but we're going to go ahead and make the transition onto the NFL. Boy, did y'all watch that Thursday night game?
Yes, I did.
Did you watch that Thursday night game?
Just highlights.
Just the highlights? So you didn't see
the
the
low
end?
lights.
You know, I turned that game off with like the last pick with like 4:38 left in the game. I turned it off and somebody started blowing up my phone on the messenger like, did y'all see the end of that game? And I asked for what happened and I got crickets again. So then I got a message from my dad.
Oh yeah.
He's like, this person and this person and this person, and I'm like, well, I better turn it on. And to my chagrin, I was disappointed. I was a little amped, but to see the event that happened last night, or the Thursday night rather, was quite interesting to say the least.
I mean, so Thursday night game, if you're living under a rock, you know, it was Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We were actually here on Wednesday with King Kalunga, or I'm sorry, Big Panzon.
Panzon Amarillo.
The number 1 Steelers fan. And we were all kind of surprised to see that Cleveland was favored in this game.
Yeah.
And it was a home game, but we've seen how the Steelers defense have played in the past few weeks. Cleveland's been, struggling along, to say the least. But the boys out in the desert, Vegas, they know what they're doing. And Cleveland with the 21-7 win. And, what we're talking about, of course, it was the very last play of the game.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett comes in, takes down Mason Rudolph. It was kind of an unnecessary takedown. So I get the reaction by quarterback of the Steelers, Mason Rudolph. But he also didn't try to. You also don't have to, try to kick the dude in the groin area,
right? Or try to rip off his helmet.
Yeah, or try to rip off his helmet. It's like, dude, just take the hit, take the L, and move on. So, and I'm sorry, man. I mean, I was a defensive end, and there was dirty stuff that happened.
Speed rusher, defensive end.
Nah, bro, that's true. I was just like Myles Garrett. By the way,
tell it like it is.
It's just like Myles Garrett. I know we don't. There's a little bit of height difference.
Minus about a foot.
A little bit of height difference, but yeah, I mean, especially down in the trenches. And Paul, you know this.
Yes, I do.
There's a lot of dirty stuff that happens down there. There's a lot of stuff, maybe punches to the stomach, maybe some rips,
trench
maybe
warfare.
Yeah, I mean, and you get kind of used to that, as a offensive or defensive lineman, and that's just part of the game. And so you actually kind of have to defend yourself sometimes, especially if that happens to you early in a football game. It's going to happen to you. So I was kind of like, all right, well, but if somebody tried to like kick me or punch me in the groin and rip my helmet off, I don't know if I wouldn't have a similar reaction to Myles Garrett. I know it was an emotional reaction. I know it wasn't the correct reaction, and he definitely deserves to be suspended indefinitely. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand. If you ever seen that old Chris Rock bit.
Look, my biggest thing was not the feelings of how the event went down. My biggest feelings that were negative were to all these individuals who wanted to bring criminal charges against a football play that happened after the whistle. That to me was the biggest outrageous view of the world that I could think. And this is coming from NFL players. Why would you want to bring charges against your brotherhood? That's what y'all called it the whole time. It makes no sense. I understand what the man did was wrong, and I think that he should have been served his penalty. And I said it that night. The rest of the year, 6 games, fine, $250,000. I'm not sure what his fine's going to be, but he did get the 6 games and possibly some games in the future. Definitely the playoffs are out of the question. Mm-hmm. But you should not demonize a human being when you don't even know who the man is. I have a little bit of understanding of who he is. I may not know the man personally, but I know what he's into. And if I know what you're into, I know what you're not into. And this man's into paleontology. He's into astrophysics. He's into writing diaries and poems. The man is not a violent individual. Don't demonize him because of the way he looks. Demonize him by his character. And if you don't know his character, then you need to shut your mouth, because that is not who he is at the end of the day. The man made a play. He possibly got kicked in the groin. He possibly was getting his helmet ripped off. But at the end of the day, he made a play. He made a bad decision. He was probably seeing red. And then he got viciously attacked by another individual who was seeing all black, who got suspended at the same time, and Maurice Pouncey. So at the end of the day, don't demonize one individual because of the way he looks. I understand if you're a person of color, if you're black or if you're brown, you're going to get prejudged. Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, don't ask questions to the head coach like, is Myles Garrett seeking anger management? Why would you ask that question? Because of the way he looks? Nobody's talking about Richie Incognito when he's acting a fool, having domestic violence charges and with his own private life. The guy acts a fool on the football field. Let's start asking very insensitive questions when you don't know the character of a human being. It's just wrong.
Zach Lucetto.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows like what he did was wrong. Like he admits it, his teammates admit it, his coaching staff admits it. All the analysts, even the analysts that are not necessarily siding with Myles Garrett, but are being more lenient towards Myles Garrett, are agreeing that what he did was wrong. But I think it's just the juxtaposition of how he's being treated versus Mason Rudolph. Mm-hmm. I mean, Mason Rudolph is. I mean, I know they always say they get the guy that goes second, mm-hmm. but I mean, with the technology, with the amount of scrutiny that these plays are under now, like there's no way that they didn't see that Mason Rudolph was the person that instigated this. And I think people are taking into too much of an account the amount of penalties that Myles Garrett has had this year so far, and are taking that as that he's a violent player, that he's a dirty player, and that this was just another dirty play. And like I don't think you can put this in the same folder as just a regular penalty, as just a regular play. I think this is something that has to be viewed with a different lens, and I don't think that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm kind of, like I said, I don't think anybody here agrees with the action or reaction of Myles Garrett. Not saying that nobody here is defending that, and if that was me, I wouldn't even defend that. Like if I hadn't reacted the way, then I'm not sure I wouldn't have reacted the way that Myles Garrett reacted. I might have.
He said he made a mistake, and he said it was foolish.
I might have, but I know my own character, and I know what kind of person I am, and just being on that type of stage, you're gonna get those critics and those people that really don't know you saying all these things about you, and then it's a football game. It's a violent game. It's an emotional game. You play without emotion, then you're probably going to lose. And, I think it was, I do think it was kind of odd that he would kind of go after the quarterback there with us. I mean, it's like, it's the last play of the game. You're up 21-7. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, just, yeah, I think he kind of put himself in that situation almost a little bit. I mean, you're still playing till the whistle, but I'm not sure if I would have done all that. But still, there's no excuse from Mason Rudolph's side to do all the things that he did to instigate this whole situation. Zach?
Like I mean, Myles Garrett is an NFL veteran. Like he's been in the NFL. He's been in the NFL for a while. He's a high draft pick. He's someone that because of where he was drafted, that so much research was put into him as a person. Like if we know they know so much about Myles Garrett, how do they know so much about Mason Rudolph to be able to rule out all the things that they're applying to Myles Garrett doesn't apply to Mason Rudolph? Like how do they know so much about this late round draft pick from from Oklahoma State that has a history of harboring players that have done some kind of shady things in the past? Like why is no one talking about that, but everyone's talking about Myles Garrett? I mean, like you said, nobody thinks what happened was right, but I just think people should be talking more about Mason Rudolph, and I don't think Mason Rudolph should just be
given a pass.
No, not even necessarily. Like I mean that for sure, but I don't think he should be relishing in the fact that he's a victim. Like he's not once talked about what he did. They've played him as the victim, and he's just accepted that role and ran with it, as opposed to being a man and accepting responsibility for his role and what happened. He's just he's just heard the media narrative that's surrounding the situation and taking it as his own.
Perception is reality, and unfortunately that Myles Garrett's going to be castigated in such a negative way is preposterous. Mason Rudolph should own all of his behavior, from him trying to pull off Myles Garrett's helmet to potentially kicking him in the groin. And then I know I'm just perceiving the character of Mason Rudolph.
Or even saying even saying I didn't kick him in the nuts. I didn't try to rip off his helmet. He hasn't even said anything about it.
And that's the biggest thing is if you look at him in the press conference, he's relishing that victim role. He's placating to everybody to say, look at me, I'm the bad guy, or I'm the good guy. And at the end of the day, to me, this is just him parlaying this to possibly landing another NFL job, possibly somewhere else, where I was the victim. Look at those people. How can they treat me this way? And I'm just sickened. I'm sickened about how that person can just behave this way. I mean, you're an adult, you're a man. Like, be responsible, own up, and just say it was an unfortunate event and keep it moving. But for some reason, he just can't get past that.
Zach?
Shout out to James Jones, because he's been one of the main guys in media kind of saying what we're saying, that people aren't seeing the whole picture in this situation. So shout out former Packer James Jones.
Shout out to Josina Anderson also. She's viewing this the same way that we are.
Really?
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen a whole lot of or got a chance to see a whole lot of the media reaction. I haven't even got to see Mason Rudolph's stuff. You know, but I know personally how I feel about the situation. And I don't know. I kind of had a similar situation in my playing days. I was kicked out of a football game. I didn't hit anybody with a helmet. You know, I might have hit the quarterback a couple times after the play, you know, a little bit out of frustration or because I was getting what I felt like, you know, targeted by referees. And, you know, I was told like not to do things that were in my mind legal. And you know,
they were hindering your speed rush.
Yeah, they were definitely hindering my speed rush. And I was kicked out of a football game. And I was like, man, that's like, you know, and I don't know, you know, shout out to my mom and dad. They probably remember this because I got kicked out of this football game and I went nuts. I went crazy on the sidelines and I threw helmets. I threw shoulder pads. I was on the bench, you know, cursing out the referees. And my coaches let me. Like,
You were probably right.
My coaches, and I'll never forget this. My coaches, like, they let me like get it all out, and then they were like, okay, now go to the locker room. And I always remember that I was allowed to do that and allowed to vent my frustration. But then immediately after the game, I went to every single one of my coaches and I apologized for the way I acted and reacted. And every single one of them, including my head coach, Coach Rod Hess, were like, don't worry about it. We know you. We know you as a person. We know you as a player, and you were frustrated, and that wasn't you. And I didn't get punished. I didn't have to run no gassers. I didn't have to do, you know, bear crawls or anything. They just knew where I was coming from, and I feel like I'm kind of like that coach. I'm like, you know, right now, like Myles Garrett's my player,
Right.
And I know where you're coming from. They didn't like the way I handled myself,
Right.
And they told me that. My coaches told me that. We didn't like the way you did that, but we understand. And then you came to us individually, to each and every coach, and apologized. You know, and for them, for, you know, a 17-year-old kid to do that, they thought it was, you know, it said a lot because they knew my character at the time, so they didn't hold that against me. So, you know, Myles Garrett's going to be out for the remainder of this season. I'm not sure what's going to happen to Mason Rudolph. Did he get any suspension yet?
Nope. You got to pass.
Wow. All right. Well, you know, I know Marquise Pouncey got 3 games.
He got 3 games.
And
Agubanjo, defensive line for the Cleveland Browns, he got 1 game for his participation.
all right. So we'll see how this what this does for both the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward.
I think it fires Cleveland the hell up.
Cleveland?
Yeah,
You
I think
so?
it fires them the hell up, refocuses them. Yep.
They could use this as a springboard. All right, Dallas Cowboys taking on the Detroit Lions tomorrow, noon o'clock in Detroit. Detroit 3-5-1, Dallas 5-4. Dallas is a 7-point favorite.
Wow.
On the road. Is that too much?
They were 3 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And now 7 on the road. What? Well, maybe now that Stafford's solid, or it's been determined that he's going to be out completely. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of gives Dallas the big leg up there. But Dallas, besides Dak Prescott, if y'all show up and play the way y'all were playing previously, and Dak plays the way he played last week, this should be a big victory for them. And they need it. They really do.
They do, because they're going to be in Foxborough taking on the Patriots the next week. So
like 4 or 5 days later,
something like that. Yeah. So they need this win big time. Zach, any thoughts about the Cowboys?
No, I mean, I think this is a game that you have to win if you want to talk about the Cowboys at all.
So Dallas Cowboys, if you want Zach Lucero to talk about you got to win this game.
Right? I think if they lose this game, we stop talking about them on the podcast.
Wow.
Really? So if you're 500 or lower, we're not talking about you.
If you lose to the Matt Stafford-less Lions,
bro,
we
they
stop
lost.
talking
They
about
lost.
you.
They lost to the Jets, who were 1-4 at the time, or 1-5.
Yeah, but they had
3.
Darnold though. They had
He
their
had just
number
come
one-
off mono.
They had their quarterback.
He just finished making out, or hit the chemical warfare that Belichick sent down to Raymond, or was it? Wasn't it? I was going to say Raymond James, but that's not right.
Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas was the one that brought over the mono from New England. Belichick's special mononucleosis brew.
Wow, that was pretty good pronunciation.
Oh, thanks. Jacksonville, Indianapolis. The Colts are 5-4, so we can talk about the Colts. Is Jacoby Brissett going to be back yet?
Yeah, he's supposed to be starting this game.
It looks like he is.
His name is Brissett, by the way. So if you don't know, if you haven't listened to, if you're a new listener, I call him Jacoby Brisket. All right, Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo 6-3, Miami 2-7. No longer the worst team in the NFL. Buffalo with a 6-point favorite. That's all they're getting. Going down to Miami. Kind of surprised by that.
Because they can't throw a touchdown. They can run them, but they can't throw touchdowns.
Denver, Minnesota. Denver 3-6, Minnesota 7-3. Minnesota.
That's a boring game.
At home, 10-point favorites. Tell us why it's a boring game, Zach.
Because
Flacco's not in there?
No, I mean, the Broncos are just terrible to watch, and the Vikings have Kirk Cousins. He's
So
hard to
Dalvin
look
Cook
at.
means nothing?
Kirk Cousins is good, man.
Yeah, but they're not fun to watch.
Yeah. I like Dalvin Cook.
I like Dalvin Cook too.
New Orleans, Tampa Bay, the Saints 7-2, Tampa Bay 3-6. This is at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay. New Orleans only a 5-point favorite on the road. Kind of surprising.
I think after last week, them kind of laying an egg against the Falcons, I think Vegas is looking a little more into that than it should be.
That was weird.
I mean, I think it was eerily similar to the Packers loss to the Chargers.
That's true. But still, it was just like I was so kind of thrown off by that. New York Jets visiting the Washington Redskins. So who's going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL? The Jets are 2-7. One of those 2 wins, of course, against the Dallas Cowboys. Washington 1-8. The Redskins are 2-point favorites at home. Is anybody interested in that game?
No.
Atlanta, Carolina. Atlanta going to Carolina. See, Carolina's 4-point favorites. Atlanta coming off their win, surprising win over the Saints. Do they have enough to beat Kyle Allen and Christian McCaffrey?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is just as much a bounce back game for the Panthers as well.
That's true. That's true. Houston taking on Baltimore. This is going to be the game of the.
Now this
is the game tomorrow. We got Deshaun Watson. You got Lamar Jackson. Houston 6-3. Baltimore 7-2. The Ravens trying to hold on to the lead in the AFC North. There, they got a tough schedule, and it's going to start with the Houston Texans at home. Who has more yards tomorrow? Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson?
I don't know real quick, though, but NFL, why are you putting this game at 12 o'clock on Sunday when you could have easily replaced the Chicago Bears-Rams game with this Sunday night? I mean,
well, they flexed the Packers game to Sunday night.
Oh, they flexed? Okay, well, even better. Who are the Packers playing, Zach?
The 49ers.
All right. Can this game at least be in 3 o'clock, though? Because, man, that's a huge game. 2 big air raid passers who can move on the ground. Whew, I like Deshaun Watson here. I like this game.
Zach?
I think when it comes to total yards, I think Deshaun Watson has his hand a little bit more in more things than Lamar does, and I mean, especially with the success of Mark Ingram, he's able to kind of take some of that load off of Lamar Jackson sometime, whereas Deshaun Watson really doesn't have that.
Yeah, he's got Carlos Hyde, really. Duke Johnson a little bit, but
Out of the backfield catching for sure.
yeah.
I mean, Houston's had an extra week to prepare without coming off the bye. So that's a really good perk thing that they have going in.
So Baltimore's a 4.5-point favorite. Anybody taking those 4.5 points, or which way are we leaning?
I'll
Here?
take Houston plus 4.5.
Yeah,
Yeah, easy.
Zach. I know you don't really bet, but what would you go?
No, I think that's a smart bet. I think this game is going to be close, and I think as a football fan, you want it to be close because I think if either team blows out the other, I think that team is going to have a hard time going forward because if a team is able to, if the Texans are able to blow out the Ravens or vice versa, every team is just going to use that mold to be able to beat them in the future, and that kind of takes away some of the allure from both of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, they'll definitely use that blueprint moving forward. Anything else on this game before we move on?
I was looking at the over-under 51.5. I'm going to take the over. I think this is going to be high scoring because they're just – I don't think the Houston's defense can stop Lamar Jackson, and I think Deshaun Watson is going to have to score to keep up.
All right, Arizona, San Francisco. San Francisco coming off their first loss of the season, and we saw the difference between a really good quarterback and a great quarterback last week when we saw the Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Grapes is a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's above average. He's really good, but
Better than Dak.
But Russell Wilson is the MVP. He's an elite quarterback. He is the type of quarterback that I think, Dak Prescott could strive to be
with the right coach.
I think he has possibly similar. I don't know if he's got the speed and the legs. Definitely not the, definitely not just the quarterback sense.
But he's got the arm. That's his biggest asset.
He doesn't have the instincts that Russell Wilson has just yet. But I think Russell Wilson he's a veteran player. He's had more experience. He knows, how to win these type of games, especially when you've got, San Francisco, who was undefeated at the time, and you get into this, late fourth quarter games, and you know what to do if you're a Russell Wilson and Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing between those two quarterbacks is the maturation level. I think that Russell Wilson's ability to come out of college and he was one of the first to use that transfer protocol to go to Wisconsin and come out and be in Super Bowls early on, get an early Super Bowl victory in his career. Jimmy Garoppolo just didn't have the experience yet. And how do you get the experience? You just got to get the reps, and that's where I think the biggest difference is between those. But I think the upside for Garoppolo is very high. There's a reason Bill Belichick wanted to get him in New England.
Yeah, that Packers game that got flexed is next week.
I was going to say, because I was looking, it's like, that didn't look right.
Yeah, that's next week.
Yeah, the 49ers don't play the Cardinals and the Packers this week. It's the one at a time.
That would have been that'd be cool to have double headers in football. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
I would want that. I would want that game flexed.
All right, Cincinnati, Oakland. Cincinnati's 0-9, worst team in the NFL.
They stink.
Are they going to go 0-16?
Probably.
They hope so.
Yeah, I guess if you get that number one overall.
Tanking for Joe Burrow.
Are they tanking for Joe Burrow or the dude from Ohio State?
I think they're going to try to get Burrow.
Chase Young? Is that his Chase Young?
Yeah. And he's back. He only had a 1-game suspension.
No, they added to it.
When did they add to it?
Like earlier this week.
But I saw late the week that we'll get that confirmed. We'll check.
Yeah.
We'll double check that.
All right, New England, Philadelphia. That's going to be at the Link. Only champions play at the Link, as they say, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. New England 8-1, 5-4. Let's see. New England is a 4-point favorite. Taking New England in that all day.
Easy.
Chicago Bears, Los Angeles Rams. This game's actually, kind of interesting now because both these teams, they could go either way. With this, who wins? Chicago Bears win this, they're 5-5, and then the Rams will be 5-5 as well. Rams are only 6-point favorites. Chargers and Kansas City. That's going to be the Sunday night game. Chargers 4-6, Kansas City 6-4. Kansas City 4-point favorites on the road. Should that be more, Paul?
I think with the limited mobility for Mahomes and, Phillip Rivers can strike at any time. And this is a big game, and I think that Phillip Rivers is going to try to show out. If him and Keenan Allen can get back on track like they were early in the year, then that game gets really tight. But, the boys in the desert, they know what they're talking about. So it could be a tight one.
Yeah, I think I said Sunday night. I meant Monday night. Zach, any thoughts on the Chiefs and the Chargers?
No. But 3 days ago, they added one more game to Chase Young.
I did see that.
Suspended against Rutgers as well.
He'll be back on the 23rd.
But unfortunately, he had to miss Maryland and Rutgers. What a bummer.
So he'll be back against Penn State.
Correct.
How ironic.
So Ohio State's still my favorite to win the national championship.
Well,
if it's one thing the NCAA hates more than players taking money, it's Penn State.
All right. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of your day listening to Recon Athlete Podcast episode number 26. We'll come back Wednesday with number 27. We'll be previewing the area round of the playoffs, talk a little bit about college, and get some NFL there. Zach, you going to be here maybe, or you got another volleyball game?
No, I'll be back.
Be back. All right, Zach will be back on Wednesday. All right, Paul Rodriguez, do your thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all are enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Also, click the bell for the notifications, and we'll let you know when we upload.